Good evening and welcome to the Monday, September 26th, 2022 Maplewood City Council meeting. Well, I'm here to announce that fall is officially here. We have lots of exciting ways to engage in our community, including some events, and I just wanted to run through a couple of those. On October 8th, we have an open house from 11 to 2 at our North Fire Station. I'm looking out, and in our audience, we have a number of our firefighters here and EMS, and so we're going to have an open house on October 8th. I hope people will come to that, 11 to 2. Chief Mondor, did I get the right time and date? Okay, very good. He's here too. We also have a free shredding event for Maplewood residents over at Aldridge Arena. That's from 9 until noon. And later on in the month, close to Halloween, we have on October 29th our Trunk or Treat event here at City Hall. And that is sponsored by our Public Safety Department. And last year, I think I talked about epic amounts of candy, and I can confirm that there were epic amounts of candy that were consumed last year, and an awful lot of kids and parents showed up in costume. It was a really fun event. So I would encourage people to check out our website. It is there, Trunk or Treat at the end of the month. And if events are not kind of your thing to engage in the community, there are other possibilities as well. We have on our website applications for some of our commissions, including the Environmental and Natural Resources Commission. We have 2 openings on that. We have our Heritage Preservation Commission. We have 1 opening there. We have 3 openings on our Housing and Economic Development Commission, and we have 1 opening on our Parks and Rec Commission. So if that's your way to engage is by participating on one of our commissions, please go to the website and check out the applications, fill them in, and get engaged in October. So, welcome everyone. We have a full agenda tonight, and we have an audience full, wide variety of ages here, all to see the swearing-in ceremony. We'll get to that very shortly. But first, let us do the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk Sint, would you please do the roll call for us?
Here.
Councilmember Juniman?
Here.
Councilmember Knudsen?
Here.
Councilmember Villavicencio?
Here.
Mayor Abrams?
I'm here as well. Thank you. Council members, moving on, let's look at approving our agenda. Is there a motion?
I move approval. Second.
Moved by Juniman, seconded by Cave, the motion to approve the agenda. Is there any further discussions or additions?
Yeah, Mayor, I'm asking if we could move, under public hearings, move the EDA ahead of the Xcel Energy. Mainly, I've got an engagement that I'm going to be late for, and I would appreciate. I wanted to be here for the EDA portion.
Okay.
And
Thank
so
you. So a
special
friendly
provision.
amendment.
Thank
okay.
you.
Any other additions or discussion? Okay, then we've had a motion and a second to approve the agenda and a friendly amendment to swap or to switch 1 and 2 under public hearings. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. And so we'll reorder H1 and 2. Moving on to the September 12th, 2022 City Council Workshop meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
I move approval.
Second.
Moved by Juniman, seconded by Knudsen. The motion to approve the minutes from the September 12th, 2022 City Council Workshop meeting minutes. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes as well. Now, the September 12th, 2022 City Council meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Moved by Knudsen, seconded by Juniman, the motion to approve the September 12th, 2022 City Council meeting minutes. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Moving on to appointments and presentations. Council calendar update. City Manager Coleman, this is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Abrams, members of the City Council. The calendar is just to give you an update of what's coming up. On October 10th, our workshop, we will have a closed session with the City Council to have a closed session on the city's compensation study. At the council meeting in the same evening, you're going to have a presentation from city staff on our DEI initiatives. And then I also wanted to note that on October 24th, there will be a presentation from Baker Tilly to the council at our normal meeting. And so those are coming up. And then I'm happy to announce that the goats will be back.
All right.
They're coming back on October 11th. So tell all your friends and family that they will be back to finish what they started. So we're excited about that. I did want to mention to you, I have been talking to some staff in the Public Safety Department about the Citizens Academy. And they are looking for your help to recruit members of the community to participate in that. So if you have residents or people that you have worked with that you think might like that experience, I know we've had it in the past and it has been widely enjoyed and everybody just thought it was a great experience. So council, if you know somebody that you think might be a good fit, please ask them to apply to participate in that. So.
I see that we have some lights on. Councilmember Cave.
Is there a possibility we can put this in the newsletter?
Is Joe here?
No.
Okay. I will ask Joe. Have you guys put it in any? I was one day. Okay. Yes, it hasn't been put in the newsletter, but I'll see if we can get it in.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
that's a good
Great idea.
comment. Thank you.
Councilmember Knutson.
It's just come to my attention that sometimes, in certain circumstances, the goats are more popular than we are.
That's understandable.
I think that is a correct observation.
Yes, I do too. It's understandable.
I will say that I was out in the community this morning, and I did have that question from two individuals, when are the goats coming back? Yeah.
That's all I have,
Just
Mayor,
saying.
unless you have other items that you'd like staff to be working on, your research
Thanks.
or other.
And just for the council's knowledge, Maplewood was put in for an award for the goats with the St. Paul Area Chamber for sustainable projects on city.
Planning and.
Yeah. And so we'll find out, we're one of the finalists for our goats. And so we will find out on Thursday night whether or not we win an award for having goats eating buckthorn on the property. So who knew that the goats would be such a wonderful kind of an event? Okay.
That's it.
Thank you very much. Council members, is there anything else that you would like to bring forward? Seeing none, okay, then let's move on. We have no council presentations tonight, and we are now at the point in the agenda for all of you who are here with us. This is the swearing-in ceremony for firefighter paramedics Natalie Young, Michael Scars, and fire captain paramedics Brad McGee, Jordan Wardle, and Michael Molesky. Chief Mondor.
Thank you, Mayor Abrams, members of the council. The fire service is steeped in tradition. Some of those traditions go back to over 200 years. And while the Maplewood Fire Department strives to challenge previous paradigms, one of the traditions that we hold on to deeply is the badge pinning ceremony. Each badge prominently displays a Maltese cross. That 8-point cross originated during the Crusades when the Knights of St. John banded together to rescue the sick and injured. Later, these heroic firefighters were awarded a badge of honor similar to this Maltese cross, and it's come to symbolize the protection provided by the wearer and the loyalty for which they serve. Tonight, we formally welcome 2 new members and promote 3 existing members of the Maplewood Fire Department family, and these members will continue to embrace the symbolism of the Maltese cross as they pledge to protect the community and embody our motto of service before self. So I will call up each of you one by one, and if you want to come have a seat or come stand to my right. Firefighter paramedic Natalie Young. Natalie Young wanted to work for an agency that is focused on community-driven public service. and has been working with the North St. Paul Fire Department since 2020 and also previously worked for Hennepin EMS. Natalie served our country as a member of the United States Army for the previous 9 years and is recently serving with the Army National Guard. Firefighter paramedic Michael Scara. Michael wanted to join a motivated and progressive fire EMS department and was intrigued by the department's public education and community outreach initiatives. Michael's a second-generation firefighter. His father's here tonight and previously served with the city of Cottage Grove. Michael has also previously served with the Cottage Grove Fire Department and Hennepin EMS. Fire Captain Paramedic Brad McGee. Captain McGee was assigned to the B shift at the North Fire Station effective August 8th of 2022 and brings over 10 years of fire EMS experience into his new leadership role. He has contributed to the department in several initiatives, was the chair of the department's 2022 strategic planning process, oversees the Quality Assurance and Improvement Committee, and has been a tremendous asset to the fire department, and we're happy about his recent promotion. Next, I'll call up firefighter paramedic Jordan Wardell. Jordan was assigned to the B shift South Station on August 8th, 2022, and brings nearly 16 years of fire EMS experience. Still works as a paid-on-call firefighter and has served in various roles with the North St. Paul Fire Department and worked for Hennepin EMS. Jordan's been instrumental in our recruitment and retention and community outreach initiatives and recently completed his emergency management certification and is working to bolster the city's emergency management program. Fire Captain Michael Molesky was assigned to the A shift South Station effective August 8th, 2022, and brings nearly 12 years of fire and EMS experience to the leadership team. He's previously served as a captain for the Lake Johanna Fire Department and assistant chief for the Lexington Fire Department. Mike has been a key contributor to the department's strategic planning committees, recruitment and retention, truck committee, and has chaired the department's uniform committee, increasing professional standards. So, City Clerk Sint, would you like to do the swearing in? Sure.
Have you kind of line up here, that way council and your family and friends can see. Have you raise your right hand, and then you will each state your name as we begin, and then we'll continue all in, you'll all be together in reciting. I
I'm Natalie Young.
I'm Michael Scar.
Hi, Bradley McGee.
Hi, Jordan Wardell.
Mike Molesky.
solemnly swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States
Solemnly swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States
and that of the state of Minnesota,
and that of the state of Minnesota,
and all ordinances of the city of Maplewood,
and all ordinances of the city of Maplewood,
and the policies and procedures of this department.
and the policies and procedures of this department.
I will embody our values
I will embody our values
of integrity and teamwork,
of integrity and teamwork,
professionalism, accountability, and excellence.
professionalism, accountability, and excellence.
I understand my behavior on and off duty
I understand my behavior on and off duty
affects the reputations of all firefighters.
affects the reputations of all firefighters.
I will at all times
I will at all times
uphold the highest standard
uphold the highest standard
of the professional firefighter
of the professional firefighter
and the proud traditions of the Maplewood Fire Department.
and the proud traditions of the Maplewood Fire Department.
Congratulations.
I would now like to call up family members, friends, and employees that our employees and promotees have asked to pin their badges.
Cute. Look at the babies. Oh, tiny. Oh my goodness. get this. The baby. The baby's like, I don't get what we're doing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and congrats on your recent appointments and promotions.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Nice. Thank you. Love that. Fantastic. Thank you.
Congrats.
We understand that you don't want to necessarily stay for the rest of the meeting. That's quite all right. We're never offended. I always love that. Okay, moving on our agenda. Next, we have the resolution for commissioner reappointments. This is City Manager Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. This evening, we have 5 commissioners whose terms will expire on September 30th of this year. They are Ann Paulzer of the Environmental Natural Resource Commission, and she is not seeking reappointment. Mark Jenkins from HEDC, Housing and Economic Development Commission, is also not seeking reappointment. Constance Robinson from HEDC is also, she's moved out of the community, so she is not able to seek reappointment. And then Joy Tchuk with HEDC has indicated she is not seeking reappointment. Ted Redmond has submitted his form to be considered for reapplication on the Environmental and Natural Resources Commission.
Goodness.
So we have some work to do here on recruitment. But we do recommend that you adopt the reappointment for Mr. Redmond for the Environmental and Natural Resources. And then I would also point out that in your packet, there were a couple of people who, even though they're not, there's one person that, even though they're not seeking reappointment, did make some comments to you on the commission and their experience with the commission.
I know I always appreciate that feedback. Council members, is there a motion?
I move approval of the resolution for commission reappointment for Mr. Ted Redmond to the Environmental and Natural Resources Commission.
Second.
Moved by Juniman, seconded by Cave, the motion to approve the attached resolution for commissioner reappointment for Ted Redmond. Is there any further discussion? I'm sorry, Councilmember Juniman.
Well, I just wanted to say we thank the people who have not sought reappointment, and in 3 of the cases, they were long-termers. They've given us lots of years. I'm really disappointed to see Ann and Mark and Joy not re-upping, but maybe they just want to do their lives without us. I'm not sure. But they have all given us a long service, so we thank them.
We do thank them from all of us. We really rely on our commissioners to give us wise advice. So Thank you for their service. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Councilmember Knudsen?
No,
Oh,
turn
okay.
on my light.
All those in favor then signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Moving on now to our consent agenda. Is there a motion concerning the consent agenda?
I motion.
Consent agenda items 1 through 6.
Second.
Moved by Knudsen, seconded by Cave, the motion to approve our consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? Councilmember Juniman,
Well, I bet you know which one.
let me guess.
I would like to check with staff that we're sure that number 5 is a goal, however temporary it might be.
Did you say goat?
No, I did say goal.
Then would you address that, please? And from my perspective, address the safety concerns that were raised
Yes.
about the sidewalks and the entranceways
Yeah, and that- and-
into that establishment.
And the door thing is a repeat, so it's
Right.
like, what?
Right.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So yes, as you know, 61 days ago, you reviewed the conditional use permit for the meadery and then asked and expressed two concerns. One, about the ongoing violation of our animal ordinance with the presence of goats on the property, and two, that there had not been a certificate of occupancy issued for the building despite it there being some special events on the property. So you asked us to bring it back to you in 60 days. So we're day 61 and we're here. So update on those two things is we have been regularly, very regularly visiting the property to observe whether the goats are, well, let me back up. The day after the council meeting, we sent a notice to the business owner indicating that those items needed to be corrected immediately. We were not giving them 60 days. They needed to be addressed immediately. And so we have then been following up on that letter very regularly out on that site, multiple staff people visiting on multiple days throughout the last 60 days to confirm that the goats are not there and they have not returned on any of our observations as late as the end of last week. So the goats, they are no longer, they have not been in violation of the animal ordinance over the past 60 days. We will continue to monitor that over time to ensure that they do not return. And we will certainly bring it back to you if we find violations of the code and potentially take action on the conditional use permit. The second item, the building inspections, the building official and the building inspections team have followed up on the construction of the facility. So in the last 60 days, we did issue a temporary certificate of occupancy. That's very common practice when there are kind of punch list items at the end that are not critical for life and safety. And so the public can safely be in the building while those remaining items are done. So that's what we have done. We've issued the temporary certificate of occupancy, which allows them to be open for business and open to the public. As the report outlines, there are two outstanding items. One, a door that's swinging in the wrong direction just for safe access. My understanding is the building code doesn't actually require two doors in that location, but if there are two doors, they both need to swing outward for egress purposes, and it's on order. So it's with the supply chain issues, there's just been some timing of getting that door into place. And then the second one is the balancing report. So there was a change in the mechanical contractor during the middle of the project, and so in order to comply with our codes, they just need to do some final balancing reports for the two systems, and the new contractor is still working on that. So those are the updates on the two items. We will follow up with them to ensure those items are completed so that we can issue the final certificate of occupancy for the project and that construction can be complete on our end.
I have one additional question. I know we're being asked to, staff recommends the CUP revisiting it in 6 months. If there is a violation of the goats, the animal ordinance for our city, we're not waiting for 6 months to bring this back to the council. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mayor. There's nothing that says we have to wait those 6 months. Right. If there is a violation and we want to take action to revoke the conditional use permit, we can do that, provided the proper notice and public hearing requirements are met. We can do that at any time. We can initiate that process, I should say, at any time. The idea behind the 6 months is to come back to you with an update and to ensure that they're continuing to be in compliance in that 6 month period. But if there's enforcement action, we will get in front of that as soon as possible.
That would be my recommendation, council members, that if there is a violation,
You took the
we
words
need
right
to
out of my
know
mouth.
about it so that we can take action on it.
Pardon me if we don't
Thank you. Council members, any other questions about that?
No, thank you.
Okay, then it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We move on to public hearings. We did amend our agenda so that we're going to start with the EDA Tax Increment Financing District Number 116. Mr. Thompson, this is going to be yours as well.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I know, just briefly go through this. I know we did just talk about this at our 6:30 meeting earlier tonight, but just to quickly go over the tax increment application from Enclave Development and the action now before the council for purposes of holding the public hearing. So as we talked about at the EDA meeting, this is a property well known. It's the Myth property on the kind of the northwest corner of the super block of the Maplewood Mall. Enclave Companies has a purchase agreement with the property owner of that property to purchase the property and redevelop the property into a 241-unit market rate housing project. What's before the council and EDA this evening is the tax increment financing application that's been submitted to the city. This currently does not include the land use entitlements, which will still go through the CDRB and Planning Commission process in the next 60 to 90 days. So we've reviewed this project for consistency with our North End Vision Plan. As you know, in 2019, we adopted the North End Vision Plan to drive investment and development in the larger North End area that creates kind of a mixed-use, vibrant neighborhood center within the North End. I talked about this. This is the project being proposed by Enclave, and they have submitted just last week the development application for. It's a 241-unit apartment building. It's 4 stories over one level of underground parking. All of the units would be market rate units, so there would not be any income restrictions on the rents on the rental units within the building. And I talked about the land use application. The action before the council now, I know the EDA earlier this evening approved the 3 items, the TIF plan, the development agreement, and the interfund loan resolution. But we are also required for the council to hold a public hearing on the tax increment financing plan and modifications to the development district. And this is the item that simply establishes a TIF district over these 2 parcels and the surrounding rights of way to support the project and achieve the objectives articulated in the plan, which is investing in a redevelopment project that has extraordinary costs associated with site acquisition, demolition, infrastructure, and rebuilding a project on the site. The TIF plan, as I talked about earlier, it does establish a maximum budget, but it does not itself establish any financial assistance for the developer. That it was all articulated in the development agreement that was previously approved this evening by the Economic Development Authority. So as I talked about, the project has been assessed by an independent consultant, Braun Intertech, to confirm that it meets the statutory requirements for establishment of a redevelopment district, what we commonly call the blight test, that there's enough coverage of site improvements as well as a substandard building on the site that make it qualified for the establishment of the redevelopment district. So with that, as I mentioned, this is the public hearing this evening for the council to hold, and then we are recommending that you approve the resolution which approves the modification of the development district and adopts the TIF plan. So with that, Mayor, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Council members, are there questions? Okay, hearing none, then we are going to have our public hearing concerning the modification of the developmental district for Development District Number 1 and the tax increment financing plan for TIF District Number 1-16. In just a moment, I am going to open up the public hearing. You will have 3 minutes to come up and talk at the microphone concerning the TIF district that's being proposed. When we have concluded all of the comments that anyone wants to make tonight, then I will close the public hearing, and then the council will have a discussion. If there are any questions that are raised during the public hearing, then Mr. Thompson will be given an opportunity after the public hearing to answer those questions. City Clerk Sint, are there any people signed up to talk about the TIF district?
Mayor, there is no one signed up.
Okay. Then this should be pretty short, but we're still going to open it up and we'll give anyone an opportunity to speak on the public hearing. I'll open up the public hearing concerning the TIF district and the tax increment financing plan for TIF district number 1-16. Is there anyone who would like to present to the council during the public hearing? There's no one signed up, and there's no one indicating in the audience that they would like to speak. I'll ask just one more time. Is there anyone who would like to present on the TIF district? Seeing none and hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. And council members, we now have an opportunity to address the motion. Would someone like to make the motion?
I will. Approve the resolution approving modification of the Development District Program for Development District 1 and the tax increment financing plan for tax increment financing district number 1-16.
Second.
Moved by Knutson, seconded by Juniman, the resolution approving modification of the Development District Program for Development District Number 1 and the tax increment financing plan for tax increment financing district number 1-16. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. Thank you very much, Mr. Ehlers, and thank you to Enclave. We look forward to seeing more from you as this project moves on. We have one more public hearing tonight concerning XL Energy. I'm getting there. Mr. Thompson, is this yours?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So I will start. I actually have Sean Finwell is actually here this evening as well to talk about the kind of environmental wetland review that has been completed as part of this project through the ENR. So we'll do this presentation together. I have a couple slides, and then I'll pass it off to Ms. Finwell. So we have a development application from Xcel Energy for their facility off of Century Avenue. It's a facility that has been in their operation since, I think, at least since the 1950s as part of their natural gas utility. And they are proposing an expansion to that facility. As you can see in the aerial photo, it's a large site, but the current operations are kind of confined to the south end of the property. They're proposing about a 30,000 square foot physical footprint expansion to their operation within the site. There are 3 actions requested from the council, and I will cover the conditional use permit and then also the public vacation for an easement. And then, as I mentioned, Ms. Finwell will cover the wetland buffer waiver that's being requested. So the site is guided in our comp plan for utility uses, which reflects its current use for a public utility, and then is zoned in our current zoning ordinance for M1, which is a light manufacturing district. And certainly this use is consistent with both the comp plan and zoning. I mentioned that the site operation dates back to the 50s. And the conditional use permit that's being requested is that in our code says that any public utility is a conditional use in all zoning districts. And so we need to approve the expansion of the use of this property through approval of a conditional use permit. As I mentioned, that's for the physical expansion of the operation and the physical footprint of the improvements on the site. And then the second item that's being requested is there is old, quite dated public easement that bisects the property. It's outlined here in blue. And it's an easement for public purposes that was dedicated, it sounds like, quite some time ago for a future development to the neighborhood to the west that ultimately developed in a different manner and no longer requires the use of this easement for any sort of public infrastructure or public access, and it's not currently used for any public purpose. So this is the item that requires the public hearing. Under the statute, the council has to hold a public hearing before vacating any public easements. And so this is the item before the council for the public hearing this evening. As I mentioned, we are recommending approval of that easement vacation, noting that it really bisects the property today, inhibits development of their proposed improvements, and we haven't identified any public need for that easement in the near or longer term that we are aware of. So those are the two items to cover, and then, as I mentioned, Ms. Vinwall can cover the review by the ENR Commission on the wetland buffer.
Good evening, Ms. Finwall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council, and thank you, Mr. Thompson. So this property is surrounded by wetlands. You can see on this wetland map, the red is Manage A wetland, which is what it's currently identified in the city's wetland map. The city's Priory Preserve is located just to the north of this property. There's some open space along the west side, then some residential property, and then the railroad tracks on the south, and Rolling Hills Manufactured Home Park is located south of that. And next slide, please. So Ramsey Washington Metro Watershed District has reviewed and approved the applicant's wetland delineation, and you can see the three wetlands that are identified on this map. Wetland 1, which is to the north, has been identified as an incidental wetland, which is a man-made wetland with no wetland buffer requirements. So this is something that has developed over time due to, probably road construction, things like that. Because of that, the Watershed District removes it from their wetland map, and the city as well, and they don't have any requirements according to our wetland ordinance. Wetland 2 is identified as a Manage B, and that again is to the north, but on the western side of that property. City code requires a 50-foot minimum buffer and a 75-foot average wetland buffer around a Manage B. And then finally, Wetland 3 is identified as a Manage A wetland with a 75-foot minimum buffer and 100-foot average buffer. So with the expansion, the applicants are requesting a waiver. City code does allow public utilities to ask for a waiver from the city council, so it's not technically a variance, but it's a waiver to encroach within the wetland buffers. And they are asking for this due to site constraints and new code requirements. So their expansion will require the filling of the incidental wetland, so that wetland will be totally filled. That's wetland 1. They'll be grading within approximately 20 to 30 feet of wetland 3, which is that Manage A wetland. And then I wanted to point out that initially we thought there'd be additional impacts to the Manage B, which is to the north. However, there's an existing gravel driveway, so it's kind of a pre-existing encroachment there, so they're really not getting any closer with that detention pond, which will be constructed in that existing footprint. So tonight what we're looking at is a request for a waiver, and that waiver is approximately 70 to 80 foot wetland buffer waiver for encroachments to that Manage A wetland. So the Environmental Commission took a look at this as required per our code, and they looked at the impacts for both the wetland and the trees. And the trees on this site, it's heavily wooded, particularly on the north portion where they're expanding. And they are proposing to remove 82 trees during the construction of the project. City ordinance, and that's 17% of the overall trees on the site. So city ordinance requires for this expansion that they replace 1 2-caliber inch tree for each tree removed. So the replacement is 82 2-caliber inch trees, or if they don't have enough room to plant all those, which clearly they won't, they can pay into the city's tree fund at a rate of $60 per caliber inch of tree that cannot be planted on site. So the impacts here and the mitigation, the Environmental Commission initially reviewed this in August, and they had several questions due to the fact that the plans were quite minimal. We had done an environmental review with several conditions, must submit a wetland buffer mitigation plan that shows native plugs and seed and, so on and so forth. But the Environmental Commission really wanted to take a closer look at the detailed plans. So they tabled that decision, the recommendation, and they requested that Excel work with staff to come up with the mitigation and then bring it back to their September meeting. So in the interim between August and September, city staff met with Excel, and here is the mitigation strategies that we have discussed. And if we could move to the next slide. Well, first of all, I'll go into the trees. So you can see on this map, the green area is the area of the most tree removal. And when we looked closely at that, it looked like there were two very large oak trees that could possibly be preserved. So Xcel Energy was amenable to that, and they were able to preserve those trees by shifting the fence to the west. So they were able to actually preserve 3 trees, an 18-inch elm, 22-inch oak, and a 27-inch oak. Another condition was that they add additional trees to plant trees along that Century Avenue where there is space. So they were able to find room for 8 trees to be planted on that east side of the property. One of the neighbors' concern on the west side of the Manage A wetland is, will that impact her view when she looks out her window? Because right now it's heavily treed. And actually there's not a lot of tree removal on that west side, but I'll explain in a moment, they're doing some buckthorn removal. So that'll kind of clear it out there. So she had asked if it's possible to have trees planted on the west side of the berm for the detention pond. And they were able to do that, so they'll have 19 smaller trees and several bushes planted on the top and west side of that detention pond. And they had to go with the smaller trees due to the fact that they had concerns about the roots impacting that berm, those large trees. And then finally, we asked Xcel to look at some opportunities for reuse of the wood from the trees because they're 82 and a lot of them are hardwood trees. And they indicate in their plans now that they will work with the local sawmill for processing and repurposing of the timber. And then, allergy season. All other softwood will be offered as firewood to plant employees, but we looked at that and we want to make sure that they're following through with the quarantine issues with EAB and so forth. So we'll make sure that if that is the case, they're not transporting it past the quarantine area. So that's the tree impacts. And if we move on to the next slide, the wetlands. So here we took a look at number 1, can you plant the bottom of the detention pond with native plugs? Well, at the time they weren't sure, but then when we met with the engineers and so forth, they indicated that no, there's no soil on the bottom of that detention pond because, of course, it's there to capture the natural gas. Yes, if there's a leak. So it's just a membrane, so they can't plant anything there. Plant the sides and top of the berm with native shrubs and trees, and again, they were able to accomplish that. Remove all invasive buckthorn, honeysuckle, and garlic mustard from the remaining Manage A wetland buffer within the Xcel Energy property, and you can see that in the blue area that's full of buckthorn and other invasives. So they'll remove all that and they'll treat and leave the stumps and manage that for 3 years, and then plant some shade-tolerant plantings in that area. And then we wanted to ensure that the wetland buffer signs are located 100 feet, so we have them installed prior to any grading work so that there's no mistakes. They can't say that they didn't know where the buffer was. So they put the signs up every 100 feet, and the city of Maplewood actually creates those signs, and we charge a fee to the developer. And then finally, a 3-year maintenance agreement, which is quite important when you're dealing with native plantings and this invasive plant management. So we take in an escrow of 150% of that initial work, and we hold that usually the full 3 years to ensure that, number 1, the invasives are maintained and don't come back, so they're treating them for the 3 years, and then that the native plants are thriving and established. So then the Environmental Commission did recommend approval unanimously during their September meeting. And I stand for any questions.
Council members, do you have any questions, either for Mr. Thompson or for Ms. Finwall? Councilmember Cave.
More comments. Sean, great job
between you, as a staff member in the environmental committee, putting this together. The environment getting close to a wetland is always a no-no in all these situations, and we have a unique situation here. But I really want to give you guys kudos for the extra work that you went in, with the trees and also with Excel for working with our staff. It shows a really good partnership, and that means a lot when you're going into a project like this, when you're asking for a variance, especially with environmental. And I think you guys did an excellent job, so thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Villavicencio.
Sean, I just want to thank you as well for all the negotiations back and forth, because I know how important our trees are. The question that I had was, did you say there was 3 trees that are being preserved?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Villavicencio, 3 additional trees will be preserved. So it was originally 85 trees that they were removing, but now it's down to 82.
Okay.
So between the Environmental Commission, we saw that there's a possibility that those 2 large oak trees and that elm tree could be preserved, so they worked with us to do that.
Okay, so it's 3 extra. Gotcha. Thank you.
Councilmember Juniman.
Everybody knows that it's painful for me to think about waivers, which is just another fancy name for a variance. And I know when you're dealing with a utility, it's kind of understood that you'll give them what they need, and I understand, but that managed a wetland really makes me nervous. And I really need them to understand, first of all, for the Environmental Commission to go through it basically twice kind of tells them the impact this has on this community. And this is a huge waiver if you're looking at the environmental side. And I know they don't have a choice. When they're counting their stars, can be glad I wasn't around in 1954 when they were doing this, or I might have said, what are you doing? But anyway, how have they agreed to everything that the Environmental Commission and you have brought up, and how are we going to guarantee this is going to happen?
Madam Mayor and Councilmember Juniman. So we do have that 3-year maintenance agreement, which will cover the Manage A buffer itself. And we've worked with several developers over the years on this, and if they hire a comparable landscaper, and we try to ensure that that's the case, there's a lot more success than if they hire someone just to install it and then think that their staff is going to maintain it. We usually don't see that success. But one example where we had some difficulty was like CarMax. It took them years to establish because they just one year wouldn't maintain it, and the next year they would. But I have been through this with Xcel Energy, and they're actually quite anxious to see what the maintenance agreement looks like. And we haven't done one in a couple of years, so I wanted to take some time to draft that. So they're fully aware of that.
Okay.
And then on the trees, we also do take a tree escrow, and then once the trees are planted, we, with a 1-year warranty, we do return that escrow. And of course, in this case, they are not able to plant all 82 trees, so we will be taking in the tree fund payment, which off the top of my head was like
I remember reading it.
something like that.
Yes.
And of course, that goes directly into the city's tree fund, where we use it to manage trees on public right-of-way and in our parks. So, and of course, we have the conditional use permit now, so we can always hold that over them.
So that's kind of where I was going with this. I cannot stress enough that while we do a waiver for a utility, we now have a CUP. And so if they screw it up, they'll have to come back and talk to us again. Probably not something they're going to be dying to do. those 3-year agreements, as you know, Sean, always make me very nervous, no matter who signs them. I'm hoping that they will, as you say, get someone very reliable that knows something about these things to do it for them. That's the most successful way to do it. And because of the invasion into the manage a wetland buffer, I implore XL to be as careful as they've ever been anywhere on the planet. Because first of all, I'm meaner than people in other places. But I just, and the fact that the open space preserve is right there. I mean, it's just, this is really, there's no dainty way to approach this. You know, you're really dangerously close to something that's very important to the people of Maplewood. You know, 1993, they floated money to buy preserves, and you're kind of infringing close. So I implore you to be careful, but I also ask you to live up to your 3-year agreement and beyond. There's no magic in 3 years. So I'm just asking you to be exceedingly careful. And Sean, do they have enough space, those 3 trees they have decided to, you know, preserve? So, because sometimes when you're grading, the root systems of some of those significant trees get kind of upset, shall we say. Do they have enough space to do what they need to do, you think, to preserve those trees?
We did ask for a more detailed tree preservation plan so we can ensure that that fencing is placed
And
appropriately.
at least from this chair, what she says goes. And she's nicer than I am, but I will haunt you and your children if you don't do what you say you're going to do.
Thank you,
Madam Mayor,
Councilmember
one
Juniman.
last comment is that while it's not the ideal location for a utility, they
Well, it's
are bringing in some, you know, additional protections so
Right.
that if there ever was a spill, it would not spill directly into the wetland. So
Right.
that
I mean,
is the one
in the
positive.
end, we should gain. But I'm just in the process of constructing this is where a slip-up could be an issue. So that's why I'm asking to be very careful. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions up here. Okay. So at this point, we are going to hold the public hearing concerning the conditional use permit and wetland buffer waiver resolution and the public vacation of an easement resolution. So with that, I will open up the public hearing. City Clerk Sint, are there any people who would like to speak on these issues?
Mayor, no one has signed up.
Okay, then this one is going to be a very short one as well. Is there anyone who would like to speak concerning the XL Energy 1555 Century Avenue North request for a conditional use permit and wetland buffer waiver resolution, or the public vacation of an easement resolution? Seeing none and learning that there's no one signed up, then I am going to close the public hearing. And council members, we have 2 motions before us. Would someone like to make the first one?
Sure. I'll motion to approve a resolution for a conditional use permit and a wetland buffer waiver permitting Xcel Energy's gas plant improvements at its site located at 1555 Century Avenue North.
Second.
Moved by Cave, seconded by Villavicencio, the motion to approve a resolution for a conditional use permit and a wetland buffer waiver permitting Xcel Energy's gas plant improvements at its site located at 1555 Century Avenue North. Is there any further discussion? Councilmember Juniman.
Thank you, Mayor. There was one wildlife issue that I failed to point out in the report, and that also has to do with, I guess, disturbance is the best thing I can say. And to some people, it might seem mundane, but we don't have a lot of sandhill cranes in this part of the country. Most of them are in South Dakota and Nebraska. And so that particular point needs to also be paid very close attention to. These are sensitive things, and again, I say, the people of Maplewood paid for a nature preserve right there. So anything that pops up like this has to be dealt with most carefully. I implore you.
And I believe the report indicates that the area where the sandhill cranes are nesting or will nest is protected from, was it April, and during the months of April and May? Just for points of clarification.
Hopefully
Okay.
they'll be. happy with April and May. I
Okay.
don't think you can interview the birds, but whatever.
All right, so there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
I
Any
begrudgingly.
opposed? No opposed, the motion passes. Would someone like to make the second motion?
A motion to approve a resolution for the public vacation of an easement located within the site at 1555 Century Avenue North.
Second.
Moved by Cave, seconded by Juniman, the motion to approve a resolution for the public vacation of an easement located within the site at 1555 Century Avenue North. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes as well. We have no other public hearings tonight, no unfinished business, and we're moving on to new business. We have the massage center license for Eric Ashley Salon. Sorry, I didn't say that correctly. Ms. Sint, this is your topic.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. So tonight, this evening, Eric and Janet Almendinger, the owners of Eric Ashley Salon, are requesting approval of a massage center license for their business located at 2255 Minnehaha Avenue. Eric Ashley Salon has been operating in this location since 2014, and they now wish to add massage as a service. Their daughter, Haley, will be the massage center manager and the massage therapist. Background investigations have been conducted on all of them, and nothing was identified that would prohibit the issuance of the license. And unlike what the report says, they were able to meet with Lieutenant Steiner on the general expectations and rules of operating a massage center last week, and that happened after the packet was sent out. So at this point, staff is asking for a motion to approve the issuance of a massage center license for Eric Ashley Salon at 2255 Minnehaha Avenue, and the applicants are here if there are any comments or questions.
Okay. Would the applicants like an opportunity to address the council? Do you want an opportunity to introduce yourselves? Good evening and welcome to our council meeting.
Good evening.
Can you state your names?
I'm Janet Almendinger.
Eric Almendinger.
Okay. Tell us about your business.
I've had my salon since 2006 and have been in Maplewood since 2008, in a couple different locations. I think this is our home. And we're just trying to keep it more of a small family-owned business. Hopefully my daughter will be able to, she's going to cosmetology school now too, so she'll be able to expand her services, doing massage and cosmetology.
Okay. Council members, any questions? Councilmember Juniman.
Thank you, Mayor. So this, obviously, you're just adding something to a list of clients you've had for quite some time. So do you see this as adding any significant number of clients, or is it just adding something that the current clients can take advantage of?
A lot more just current clients. I'm sure it'll bring in some new clients, but we do more promotion within the salon.
Okay, so I'm just concerned about increase in traffic and cars going in and out, and I don't see anything, but I just wanted to ask. Thank you.
Councilmember Cave.
I just have a comment. I have a daughter who's in the cosmetology, and it's a tough sell nowadays. So I think that's really great that you guys are doing it family style, and a great addition to it because we all need a massage besides haircuts. So, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Council members, is there any further discussion? Then would someone like to make a motion?
Sure, I'll motion to approve the massage center license for Eric Ashley Salon located at 2255 Minnehaha Avenue East.
Second.
Moved by Cave, seconded by Juniman, the motion to approve the massage center license for Eric Ashley Salon at 2255 Minnehaha Avenue East. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Welcome, you've now expanded your business.
Thank you.
Good luck. And next, we have a letter of intent with Beacon Interfaith Housing Collaborative and the Philippine Center of Minnesota for the exchange of 2 properties. Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So that title really introduces it. As the council is aware, earlier this year, we entered into a purchase agreement with Beacon Interfaith Housing to sell 2 properties. And on the map on the screen, the 2 properties that we are selling to Beacon are 1375 Frost on the north side of Frost Avenue and 1900 Clarence Street on the south side of Frost Avenue. So those are the 2 properties subject to our purchase agreement with Beacon. As part of that purchase agreement, we are selling it for the market value of both of those parcels. So we are obtaining the market value for the 2 parcels that we own. What's always needed to happen as part of this development is an exchange with the Philippine Center to the south, because they own the parking lot on the north side of the street, the blue parcel. And so there's always been a natural connection to exchange those properties so that they end up with the parking lot that's adjacent to their site, and we obtain the parking lot to the north to consolidate the sites into a development. So the document before you tonight is the early part of that agreement. It's a letter of intent, a non-binding letter of intent to outline the general terms of this exchange that will happen between the 3 parties. Beacon Interfaith as the purchaser of the city property, the city as part of the owner of the properties today, and the Philippine Center, the owner of the parking lot and the receiver of the property today. So there's no easy way there's no simple way to explain it. So that's the agreement we will ultimately bring back to you. There's no money exchanged as part of this, just because we're getting the market value for the land we own as part of our purchase agreement, and the Philippine Center is obtaining an equal parcel of land for their parking as part of the land exchange. So that's the structure of the deal we're putting in place. I know we'll work with Mr. Beatty on the final terms, because we want to ensure that the timelines and the purchase in the purchase agreement align with the timelines in this agreement. So we'll make sure that happens before we get into the final agreement that we bring back to you. But with that, I'm happy to answer any questions on this complex deal.
You did a very good job explaining what is truly a puzzle. You really have to sit down and look at the map and then go through the staff report.
It
But thank
sounds
you for
like he
that.
was presenting the instructions for a Chinese fire drill.
Very complicated, and you did a nice job. Thank you. Council members, are there any questions concerning this particular report? Would someone like to make then the motion?
I will motion to approve the letter of intent with Beacon Interfaith Housing Collaborative and the Philippine Center of Minnesota for the exchange of surface lots located at 1900 Clarence Street North and the lot adjacent to 1375 Frost Avenue East.
Second.
Moved by Cave, seconded by Juniman. The motion to approve the letter of intent with Beacon Interfaith Housing Collaborative and the Philippine Center of Minnesota for the exchange of surface lots located at 1900 Clarence Street North and the lot adjacent to 1375 Frost Avenue East. Is there any further discussion?
I certainly hope not.
Hearing none, then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes, and the property can now be swapped. Okay, we have no award of bids, and therefore we come to adjournment. I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you, council members, for all of your work.